Richard, are you able to enable Ruby to record the meeting?
Okay, so yes, I already done that.
Thank you.
All right.
So do we have everybody, it looks like?
Yes, I believe everyone's here.
Okay. If so then, this is Janelle Swanberg. I am the chairperson of the commission currently, and I will call this regular meeting of the Davenport Civil Rights Commission to order. This is the Tuesday, July 14, 2020 meeting. I want to welcome the members of the commission and members of the staff and members of the public. I would ask that since this meeting is a virtual meeting, as everyone knows, it's a Zoom meeting, there is a chat room as a part of the format of the meeting. I'm going to ask members of the public to please not enter comments in the chat room during the meeting. I think it's very important that commission members be allowed to focus on the business of the meeting and to use the chat room only for the business of the meeting, for recording votes, for asking to be recognized, and that sort of thing. I think it's distracting to have members of the public making comments via the chat room during the meeting, and that's why we provide time at the end of the meeting for members of the public to fully address any issues they would like to address. So I'm simply asking as a matter of courtesy that members of the public have chat room. With that, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Yes, oops, hang on. Let me read this. Thomas Wilson. One creator I need to see all of them. Okay. Commissioner Floyd. Commissioner Wood. Here. Commissioner Grafton.
Here.
Commissioner Visser.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Me?
Yes, sir. You're here. Is any of us present before?
Here.
And Commissioner Swanberg.
Here.
Okay, we have everybody present.
Great, thank you. I would next ask everyone to turn their attention to the agenda as it was sent out. Has everyone had a chance to review that? And if so, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda or any changes to the agenda that anyone would like to propose.
And those who like to look at it, I think it be approved as written. I'll second the motion.
I'm sorry, who's that?
Oh, wait, John. Sorry.
Thank you. Any discussions about that? If not, everyone please signify by saying aye or raising their hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It sounds like we have unanimous approval of the agenda. Next, we have a matter of the July 2019 minutes. These, of course, are minutes from a time before most of us were a part of this commission. It does appear that Ruby and Lee, who were there, and Latrice. So I guess I would ask for a motion to approve those
I move approval of the minutes with one, my name is listed twice under those present. And
You are you. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing star six.
Ethel Lloyd, I don't have a good understanding of the minutes. I read it several times, but, I'm not sure what I'm reading.
This minute, right here, it goes,
Okay. No, that's fine.
I would just say, actually, this meeting took place almost a little over a year ago. This was at a time when, membership on the commission was in some dispute. It's a fair statement, I think, that the commission was not really able to do business at that time, so the minutes reflect that. There was not much business conducted clearly.
This is Latrine. I am talking to my line was muted. I think at the last month's meeting, there was a vote to make, alterations to these minutes, and it looks like they're in the same form.
what policy?
I don't have them written down here in front of me, but I believe there was a vote to make alterations to the minutes.
Well, the truth is, there's something beyond legally listed twice in those present.
It's cool, I know we do it at half here, if we want to wait a minute.
Okay, thank you.
I would suggest that only, they and Ruby have to vote on these minutes, because the rest of us need to abstain, because we weren't there. I understand because the minutes of the last year changed, simply say that those July 2019 meeting minutes would be added to the agenda of the July 2020 meeting. There's no reference to any vote on what changes will be made. And the only issue, which is a minor one, that I see with the stand is that listing of money twice. They have no other impact on official business conducted by the commission because none was able to be. So I would suggest that we dispense with this, it's been on the agenda of several meetings, and be done with once and for all by approving the one adjustment or approving money twice.
So are you calling the question, Lee?
I am.
Okay. So, all those in favor of approval of the minutes of the July 9, 2019 meeting with the amendment that Lee's name be deleted once from those present section. And now, Ruby, do we have a second to the motion to approve the minutes?
I second.
Okay. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
We appear to have unanimous approval of the July 2019 minutes. Now on to the June 2020.
No, I didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ethelene Boyd didn't vote.
Okay. Thank you, Ethelene. So you'll note that, Ruby?
So would she be abstained?
Yes. Thank you for noting that, Ethelene. So now on to the June 2020 minutes, at which I think we were all present. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
So if so, I would ask for a motion to approve or for any additions or corrections.
Boyd, moves that the minutes be approved, as written for June 11, 2020.
Is there a second?
Didn't you want me to edit the yay and the nay, Janelle?
Pardon me?
Did you want me to edit the yay and the nays in there?
Well, I don't think it's, that's just for future reference. Not a big deal. I think we know that those are affirmative votes. That's the main thing. Thanks. Is there a second of Etheleen's motion?
So move, Lee Gaston.
Thanks, Lee.
This is
And you-
Latrice again. The minutes, do not have all of the cases that the commission voted on.
Am I missing something?
Well, so the commission in June of 2019 did vote on cases?
We're on the 2020 minutes, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Are we missing some cases?
we're missing the cases that we voted not to approve.
Not approved?
Yeah, all the the cases that are listed here are the cases that were approved.
Okay.
There were something like 13, 14 cases that we reviewed that, most of which we didn't approve.
Okay, so I will edit that.
Yeah, I withdraw my second. I agree with Henry on that as I look at it. Thank you, Henry.
Withdraw my motion.
I would also like to see, and I don't know if it can fit into this electronic format that restricted to, but I would also like to see somewhere mention that in our consideration of these cases, the number of disapproved cases was a matter of financial ability and staff availability, not the matter of whether or not those cases were worthy of review. We had a long discussion about that. I think that should be reflected in the minutes.
So, Henry, would you like that as a prefatory paragraph that just says that all the cases that were not accepted, in those situations, the rationale was not necessarily a statement about the merits of that claim, but rather the resources available to the commission?
Yeah, I think that I would like to see that in the revised minutes, which will list the cases that were not approved.
Okay. Do you have that, Ruby?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll add the cases that were
Not-
rejected. Any other additions or corrections? So I guess, Etheleen, would you accept a friendly amendment to your motion to table these until the next meeting?
Yes, I so move.
So Lee, would you second that motion of Etheleen?
I do.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I think we had everyone approving those. Is that right? Everyone approved? Okay, I think we are on to your director's report for June, Latrice.
keep muting myself and then speaking without unmuting it. I'm hearing feedback. Is anyone else?
I am too.
Somebody's banging around.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had one case that settled in an outside mediation. It was an education case that settled for $7,500. I participated in an Iowa League conference call, so that is where the other directors from the other civil rights commissions kind of meet to go over things that are going on within our cities and with our commissions. Attended the civil service meeting last month. Participated in a HUD NAFTA conference call. They are doing online training since the rollout of the NAFTA Training Academy had to be postponed due to COVID. So we discussed sexual harassment in housing and issues relating to COVID that we might see in our jurisdiction. Janelle Rabbi Karbs and I spoke with Mayor Mattson and Chief Sikorsky on the status of policing in our community in preparation for further dialogue on that topic, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. We decided not to reopen the office. Initially, we were waiting to receive the rest of the materials for safety, so we had ordered masks and reusable masks for staff, but disposable masks for members of the public. And it took a while for everything to get in stock, but there was a significant uptick in COVID cases in Scott County. So we dialed that back and decided to continue to work behind closed doors and work from home. I attended a DCAP meeting. There was discussion about some of the recent uprisings and discussions that we're having throughout the community. At that meeting, Paul, our police chief, discussed the proposal to kind of expand the scope of DCAP to work on more root causes, and he kind of agreed with some of the conversation around there being larger social reasons for a lot of the policing that they do, I should say. I compiled information regarding actions that other communities are taking. I have it kind of drafted up. It's in the chat box, so you all can download it as a PDF. It's titled Statewide Reforms, but I'll also share it to my screen in a minute. Those are the major things. We do have an updated ICRC contract. So we had the previous ICRC contract, and now we have an updated one. We had an administrative appeal back to our office. There was a case that the commission decided not. Can everyone mute themselves? I'm hearing some feedback. Okay. There's like a baby coughing or something. Let me make sure I have everybody. Okay. So we had a case that the commission decided not to take it to public hearing. It was an education case, and that person filed an action in district court. The respondent argued that the commission does not have authority to issue a right to sue letter or an administrative release to allow people to file in court, because it would be giving the commission authority to give jurisdiction to file in state court. So that went up through the Iowa Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that the commission can't issue right to sues on protected classes that are not protected classes under the Iowa Civil Rights Act. So the only way that we would be able to issue a right to sue would be if the claim was covered under the Iowa Civil Rights Act as well. In this case, the claim was not covered under the Iowa Civil Rights Act. Well, partially was, but partially was not. It was an age and disability claim in education, and under the Iowa Civil Rights Act, there's only protection for disability in education. So at the time that the district court ruled that complainant filed an administrative appeal with the commission to request that the commission reopen their complaints so that they would be allowed to have a public hearing so as not to create a due process violation. The commission deliberated on that, and they decided to oppose reopening the complaint pending the outcome of the Supreme Court case. If the Supreme Court ruled that the person was not able to pursue their claim in district court, then they would be allowed to reopen the case with the commission. So the Supreme Court ruled that they were not allowed to pursue their claim in district court on June 30th. And so where we are now is that there is a administrative appeal pending, asking that the court remand that case back to the commission. We have a new staff member, so as you all remember, one of our staff members passed away earlier this year, and prior to that, she was out on leave. We were finally able to get someone hired to come in, and so she started on June 23rd. Going back to the meeting that we had with the mayor and Paul. So last month we discussed having conversations with community members, kind of discuss things that they are seeing. Obviously, we don't necessarily interact with all that many people to know exactly what's going on in the community. So one of the things that has been discussed is whether or not our police department uses chokeholds, and some people said, yes, they are using chokeholds. They'll go up behind people and wrap both arms around their neck, strangling them. There are concerns about racialized trauma and fear within the Black community. People are afraid to walk down the street, even going to the store, or walk around their own neighborhoods alone. The police department stops people and have been pulling people over for wearing masks to protect themselves from COVID. And when the officers stop them, they're not wearing masks, increasing these individuals' likelihood of being exposed to the virus. When people ask why they're being stopped, they're told that they fit the description, someone they're looking for. They feel like that's being used to engage in various stop and frisk encounters. Black men are afraid to ride in a car with more than 3 Black men because they believe that they'll be pulled over. They believe that they are being profiled for their hairstyles and clothing. So things like cornrows and dreads or backwards baseball cap can lead to them being pulled over. Sorry, I heard a dog like running. Distracted squirrel. They're afraid to walk down the street without their IDs. They are threatened with arrest for not having an ID. They feel like that's incredibly unfair. Some people can't afford an ID or are lacking documentation to obtain an ID. And that's something that you see a lot with people who may be in a lower socioeconomic status. If you have insecure housing or housing instability, you might move a lot, and you might lose a lot of the underlying documentation that you would need to get an ID or driver's license. The kids are afraid of being arrested for not having their ID, so they walk around with their student ID even in the summertime. People report that the police department frequently ignores complaints about violence committed against Black people. There are instances where people experience a refusal to file a report or a refusal to give a report number. In reviewing the data in the FBI database, there does appear to be a disparity. Generally, crime is intraracial due to housing segregation, but the data reflects a disparity between crimes committed and the victims of crime. Black people report that they file complaints and they never hear anything back. And when they follow up with the police department, they're ignored. They're kind of told, we don't know what to tell you. And people say, well, when I protect myself, then what's going to happen? Well, you can protect yourself, but you're going to be charged. I feel like there is extensive over-policing while at the same time under-policing occurring in majority minority communities. Specifically in the area of 13th and 14th and Ripley, 14th and Gaines. As an example of profiling, there was a community member driving. She was stopped when the officer got to the car and saw that it was a woman who had dreads. They waved her on and just let her go. They're concerned with concerns with police interaction with community members where they are being treated in an inhuman and degrading manner. They're being rude and condescending to community members. The police officer told one woman to shut up and get in her car and leave when she arrived to check on her daughter and grandchildren who were the victims of a crime. On 14th and Gaines, there was a woman who was told to be quiet, bitch, you're the reason this is going on, when she called for assistance. They feel like the police department ignores complaints against certain community members, treating them as if they are above the law. So they believe that this is either because the people are informants or it's a way of forcing people to kind of take the issue into their own hands and effectively killing two birds with one stone. So calling one person to be harmed or killed and the other person to be arrested. There was an assault that was captured on Facebook. A young woman was attacked and the police pulled up and witnessed the assault but didn't take any action. And then the parties kind of stood across the street while the victim gave her statement to the police. They say that they don't respond to certain people's calls for assistance. When Black people call the police, there's a very long response time. However, when their white neighbors call the police, the response is very quick. Community members have been listening to the scanner. They've heard the police decline to go to certain calls. One officer was asked to respond to a domestic violence incident, and he said, fuck her, she's always calling. Another instance of scanner misconduct, an officer reported that a young woman died over the scanner and told emergency responders to take their time because she was already gone. Another instance was accusing an individual of committing a crime over the scanner, which they felt was intentional because they knew that people were listening to the scanners as a way to create confusion within the community about the individual's involvement in a crime. People report being roughed up by the police department. When they ask for a badge number, the officers refuse to give it to them. They report that the police department frequently turns off their cameras when engaging in misconduct. Some officers even spread rumors about people's involvement with the police and in criminal activity as a way to kind of create confusion. And then we have the data from DCAP that shows the racial disparities occurring year to year with traffic stops to show that there's a disparity in how people are being pulled over. And there was an issue a few years back where a Hispanic man died a few days after police kneeled on his shoulders and compressed his chest cavity. I'm gonna unmute everyone before I go on to the next issue.
Hey, this is Mike Guster. This meeting with the mayor, police chief, and the chair and vice chair of the commission here. Was this a request to them to meet with you guys, or did they call and ask for a meeting, or how did this come about?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Well, as you remember at our last meeting, we asked Latrice to do these listening sessions to find out what is going on in the community, what's the perspective of the people in the community about the issues of police misconduct. When Latrice had done her due diligence in this, she shared her findings, which were a list of 18 different topics with Janelle and myself as chair and co-chair. And three of us discussed the matter, and we decided that we wish to share this list with the mayor and the police chief prior to this meeting, because this meeting is a public meeting. We want them to be blindsided if there's someone from the media or Quad City Times or well, not the TV stations, obviously, on a Zoom meeting, but someone from the media who would be here, and then the next morning, then tomorrow morning, they open the paper and they see this laundry list of concerns. And that we wanted them to know about this, to realize that these are the things that are going on the street, and that they need to give some serious consideration to the culture of what's going on within the police department, among the officers, so that they can start positively addressing that. And that we can be partners in resolving these issues, in making things better, rather than adversaries. Does that answer your question, Michael?
I got a further statement. So, the results and the expectation was that there would be some change within the police department, or was it basically just to alert them that this information was out there and going on in the Black community?
The goal was, and the stated goal, and we said it to them several times during the course of the meeting, was that our desire was for, that for them to act upon these things and to look to ways to make changes in the police department. So these things, this type of culture does not continue. Okay.
So were there any commitments on either the police chief or the mayor to take some action? And what is the deliverable that we're going to get as a result of this meeting?
Well, I'm going to let Janelle and Latrice correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense of this was that the police chief and the mayor were very, very receptive to this report, and we're going to take it under serious advisement. They didn't give any substantive responses as to what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and when they're going to do it, but they did demonstrate that they were interested in addressing these matters.
And I would just add to that, Henry, that, coming up, we'll be talking about the special commission meeting that we agreed last month to hold sometime soon to talk about these issues as a commission. And then, we're also going to talk, I think it was Lee who suggested that we have a broader discussion in the community with perhaps the city council, the mayor, the chief of police, maybe the sheriff's department, other community groups, to really have a larger discussion about these matters, to really try to come up with some specific requests and specific, suggestions for what our policing can look like in this community and change. Is that, Henry and Latrice, is that what I think?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Latrice?
Sorry, I kept a habit of muting myself and then I'm speaking. And then I think I was asked to kind of compile the things that other people are working on throughout the state. And so that's the other document that I'll share now.
So
Thank you, Latrice.
I have a question. So Wyndham report, you guys said that there's a list of issues that Latrice was able to compile. So are we all in agreement that those reports are just shared with the chair and the vice chair instead of the whole commission?
It's being shared with the commission now.
Well, and I guess I would suggest that, Latrice, perhaps the email that you sent to Henry and I could be forwarded to all members of the commission so that they have that, that written list. And certainly that would assist Ruby with the minutes, but it would be something that, everyone could refer to and use to prepare for our upcoming meetings.
Yeah, I'll forward it out.
Thank you.
And then I just had a quick question earlier. Latrice, you said something about getting arrested for wearing or not wearing a mask.
Getting stopped for wearing a mask.
For wearing a mask. And I'm aware that there was a vote for the Board of Supervisors last week. So is Scott County now mandated to wear masks or no? I don't see what the result was.
Well, then how you been?
Nobody knows.
Ruby, I couldn't quite hear you, but I think you asked about the vote of the Scott County Board of Supervisors about requiring that masks be worn.
Yes.
And I think it was the vote that there not be a requirement, that there be the suggestion that people are encouraged to wear masks. I think, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what the vote was. And of course, we have the overlay now of, I think, our governor saying that when she's made this pronouncement that the localities don't have the power to require masks, as the Muscatine mayor has done.
Let me ask one other question, and I don't want to stay on this here too long, but do you guys expect an answer or an update from the police chief regarding these matters?
Yeah.
Okay. When are we gonna get something back from them? When are they due to? When are you guys due to meet with them again? And I guess has that date been set?
No, it hasn't been set. My impression, and once again, Janelle and Latrice can correct me on this, but my impression was that first we would have our special commission meeting solely focused on policing issues, and we would spend the whole time discussing this, and then as a result of that meeting, we would go back to them.
Okay, but the only thing, Henry, that I have a problem with is the fact that you've given them this information, and there should be a deliverable from them already, because I don't think that the input from the community, in my estimations, would further help other than provide some other details of things that's going on into the community. The mayor and the police chief have very specific incidents that have happened to people in this community. And so with that, if we give them something, we ought to have an expectation that they're going to give us something back in the way of something that is going to bring about a change within the department, or they're going to say the hell with you and we're not going to do anything. So I take special, I guess, let me say it another way. I have concerns when we give them something and we don't have an expectation back. And I won't say, I'll leave it at that, but I just have a problem with that.
Well, and I would.
Go ahead, Jeanette, you speak.
I was just gonna say, Mike, I think we're sensitive to your concerns, and I think our goal really was to get this list in their hands, and then, you know, for the commission to meet and to have all commissioners be able to weigh in on this very important matter, and really to come up with what, you know, if we're gonna make demands, or what our suggestions, or however strongly you wanna put it, so that, you know, we have the input from the entire commission, and that maybe we include other community groups in the discussion at some point as well. So certainly I don't view this as the end of the discussion, and I think we viewed it as the beginning of the discussion, but, you know, we're not gonna let go of this, and I think it's important work, and it needs to be done with a lot of input, and certainly all members of the commission. That was my wish, and my understanding from the last meeting. Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, and I second all that. First of all, we made it very clear, Mike, that we weren't just giving this to them and walking away. We made it very clear that we were giving it to them before this meeting, because this meeting is an open meeting. It will be public knowledge, and we're not letting go of it. And we want them to act upon that. We may not have been able to get a date and a time for them giving us a response, but they know that we want a response. Now, we have a choice, and we approach this with having a choice. We can generate an environment or an atmosphere of cooperation with the mayor and the police department, or we can generate an adversarial environment. We chose to invest our trust in the mayor and the police department, to say we trust you to start working on this. And that's why we're sharing this with you now, because we want to work with you on an ongoing basis in an environment of trust, not an environment of distrust. Now, they know we're not going to let it go. They know we've invested our trust in them. We, as a commission now, as a full commission, need to deep dive into this issue and come up with our further recommendations. And we need to hold their feet to the fire. But we started off on a foundation of trust, and that hopefully will be the attitude which governs the relationship of this commission to the city government. The trust needs to also be earned.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now I'm gonna bring up the list of reforms that we're seeing in other areas. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
My screen is a little weird. Through the conversations that Janelle and Henry and I had, I discussed with them about the reforms that other communities were taking. And so I compiled those, and then I kind of explained what they were, kind of statewide things that people were requesting. So, and then I created this little graphic of what the overall, I was very proud of myself. So a lot of people were asking that we reallocate funding away from, not specifically, I shouldn't say that. They were asking that statewide for reforms. They were asking for a reallocation of funding away from kind of policing and going more towards creating solutions. So kind of addressing those root causes and investing in solutions there. Provide safe housing. So if we could give people safe and secure housing, that would likely alleviate some of the issues that we see with crime. Remove police from schools, have pre-trial release. People who are pending trial, who have not been convicted of anything, let them be released. Reform how we are, how the probation and parole system works. I haven't looked at the data recently, but the last time I looked at the data, and it's compiled on the state, I think it's called Criminal Justice Reform CJRP, I think is what it's called, or CJJR. But the state compiles the data yearly, and a lot of the people who are Black, their violations occur because of minor things like they might forget to call their parole officer or something like that, or they might test positive for marijuana or something something like that, whereas white people were committing new crimes before they had their parole or probation revoked. So taking another look at how those programs are working and seeing the disparities that are there. Investing in care, not control. So are we really doing the best things with our dollars when we are arresting people for substance dependency rather than creating programs for people to use? Decriminalize survival, so things that such as sex work, things that people are doing just to kind of make ends meet. Do we really need to then have them have a lengthy jail sentence as a result of that? Demilitarizing the police, so kind of moving away from this kind of armed enforcement or within communities. Decentralized decision making, so allowing community members to have more input into decisions that are going to impact their day-to-day lives. I think there's a lot of focus placed on things at a national level and not as much placed on local government decision making. So among those things, kind of included within these 8 larger ideas, were having municipalities review their use of force policies, so ban chokeholds, ban knee and neck maneuvers, and strengthen the use of force standards. Reviewing the body camera policies and associated policies, so retention, when you can turn it on and off, forming independent citizens review board for complaints of police misconduct, decriminalizing minor marijuana crimes and other low-level offenses. Our community directs a lot of resources into law enforcement, but not as much into affordable housing, equity initiatives, accessible healthcare, and it causes significant harm to the community. So when we look at a lot of the work that we invest in, is focus on minor crimes or crimes of poverty that probably shouldn't even be criminalized in the first place. And so the reform efforts focus on harm reduction, so rethinking the overall role of police in our society rather than calculating acceptable levels of harm. Understanding the policing culture, and that is rooted in oppression. So modern policing structures are derivative of the slave patrols in the South and strike breaking in the North. And it was kind of a way to control social disorder, and social disorder is a very fluid term, and the definition is generally limited only by the person or entity who's defining the term. And at the time that a lot of the terms were developed, they were defined kind of by capitalist interests. So who wanted to control certain groups of people, that was how laws were made. Well, that is how laws are made. So in looking through the importance of calls for policing reform, I think one of the biggest issues is that we don't focus on the mental health aspect of it and the traumatic impact that over-policing and under-policing has on Black and Brown communities. And so this kind of goes through, I won't read the whole thing to you, it's in the chat box, so if you want to download it and read it, that's there. But it kind of goes through, it is not necessarily limited to the physical attacks, but also the psychic injury that you have as a result of encounters with police. And here's an article that kind of goes over it. There's also a DOJ study that goes over policing attitudes regarding police brutality and how there is a general reticence to report what other officers are doing, even though they know that they should not be doing it, and that they know sometimes it's even a crime. And it's kind of as a way to avoid being ostracized and given the cold shoulder. So in conversations with other municipalities, Cedar Rapids, the city council moved forward on 4 of the 7 items requested by the Cedar Rapids Advocates for Social Justice. And these are 7 requests from the group that the Cedar Rapids Civil Rights Commission supported. So they wanted the city to form an independent citizens review board. And the ones that I have bolded are the ones that the city moved forward on, city council moved forward on. They wanted them to make significant investments in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They wanted them to ban chokeholds, ban knee and neck maneuvers, and strengthen the use of force standards. They did not move forward on decriminalizing minor marijuana crimes and other low-level offenses. A lot of that conversation usually revolves around that they don't have the authority to legalize something that is illegal under state law. But I think as a policy initiative, there is definitely an ability to ask that not be an enforcement focus. They wanted the city to impose strict body camera provisions, so clearly explaining when you're supposed to have the camera on, when you can turn it off, how long the data is supposed to be stored, things like that. They wanted the city to make negotiations between the law enforcement and municipal representative public, and they wanted to abolish qualified immunity. Obviously, we've seen that there was a case regarding qualified immunity with a Davenport police officer that was in the Quad City Times this week. In Dubuque, there...
define for me qualified immunity.
It's basically that law enforcement officers should be effectively immune from responsibility for actions that they take as they are kind of calculating the risk that the person stands against them. So there's a certain level of force that they can use, and it by and large it allows them to engage in a variety of conduct that without having any responsibility for that, or legal liability for it, I should say. Oh, I see a typo. Does that make sense?
Thank
you. I can
you.
Google the specific definition for you if you need it. In Dubuque, they're developing a citizens review board in collaboration with the NAACP there. Sioux City, the city council is considering the purchase of body cameras. I guess previous to the current state of unrest, there has been vast opposition to having body cameras for their law enforcement there. So now that is, they're kind of going softer on it and thinking about purchasing body cameras and getting a policy in place for that. In West Des Moines, the mayor signed the mayor's pledge, which I think is a leftover from the Obama administration, where mayors across the United States pledged to review their police use of force policies, engage communities by including diverse range of input, experiences, stories in the review, report the findings of the review to the community, get feedback, reform the community's police use of force. And that was what they viewed as their first step, was to create to sign the pledge, and then they're going to create a community member task force to review policies and practices of the police department, and then they're going to provide a community presentation on their findings. And they're currently meeting weekly with the goal of having findings that they're able to present to the community in late August. And they're also in the research phase of developing a community review board for the police. So kind of instead of going to internal affairs, they would go to a community review board and they would determine whether or not excessive force was used or misconduct occurred. Des Moines passed an ordinance that prohibits racial bias in traffic stops. And I included the Des Moines ordinances also in the chat box. So they had 3 different items. So they had an ordinance that banned traffic stops and other police actions, banned pretextual stops based on race, required training on implicit bias and de-escalation techniques. They passed a resolution expressing their support of the decriminalization of marijuana and established a task force to minimize enforcement for possession of marijuana for personal use. Iowa City strengthened their existing independent review board, and then they passed a 17-point resolution targeted towards addressing disparities. So the resolution found that by December 15th, they would have a preliminary plan to restructure the Iowa City Police Department towards community policing. They would allocate $1 million in city funds to promote racial equity and social justice, expand their efforts to increase the number of minorities employed by the city, receive a report by August 1st, 2020 from the city manager's office on the Iowa City Police Department's involvement in the use of gas and flashbang devices during the protest in Iowa City on June 3rd, 2020, create an ad hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission to carry out restorative justice on racial injustice in the city by October 1st, 2020, change the 2021 City Council's legislative priority to advocate for more criminal justice reform and enhance the authority of the Community Police Review Board, expand the city's racial equity toolkit to city council and local business partners and use. By January 1st, 2021, receive a report and recommendations on changes to the Community Police Review Board, provide a detailed expenditure summary of the police budget on the city's website, support divestment of the Johnson County Sheriff's Office MRAP vehicle, and obtain a report on military-grade equipment owned by the Iowa City Police Department. I'm guessing that's like one of those tanks. They would direct the city manager to ban the use of chokeholds by police, direct the city manager to ensure officers working in Iowa City have not committed serious misconduct, review and revise the Iowa City Police Department's body-worn cameras and in-car recorder systems, revise the Iowa City Police Department's general orders to require officers to intervene and stop excessive force. They're going to work with the Public Art Advisory Committee and Black artists to provide opportunities for artistic expressions by the Black Lives Matter movement and communities of color, prohibit the use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and flashbangs against peaceful protesters. And beginning 2021, they would recognize Juneteenth, June 19th, as a city holiday. Urbandale is expediting the purchase of additional body cameras to cover their investigative division. They already have body cameras for the patrol division, but they're getting them now for the investigative division. And that's it.
So is this what we're looking at doing? You know, by discussing, you know, all these things that's happening, are we looking at doing the same thing, you know, recommendations, presenting our recommendations to the mayor and the police chief?
I think, Ruby, I guess my suggestion would be that, again, Latrice, can you make this available to us as it appears here? Can you email it to us?
It's in the chat. It's in the chat box. So if you,
But I want to refer to it through time, so.
yeah, you can download it. So you go into the chat box and then you download it.
I am on the chat box.
I don't see it on the chat box.
Should I resend it? It's I can see it in the chat box. I have the agenda here and I have the different.
Yep, it's on a file to the right there. If you click on the file, you should be able to.
Oh, I see. Dropbox, Michael. So
So if I click file,
where do we click from there? Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, TCX app,
Your computer.
your computer?
Yeah.
Well, I would like to make sure that this is,
The files in my computer. That's not these files.
Can you see any messages in the chat box?
yes, there's three.
Yeah, there are
So
three.
Kelly wants
there's three
to-
from members of the public.
Okay, maybe I need to read. Maybe because I shared it before everybody joined, you can't see it.
Latrice, could you email this to all of us? So I think this would be really good to have, you know, at our special meeting. I think it's very important, and I think it should be readily available. So if you could email it to all of us, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
resend it also here because we're presenting on it. So I'll put it here again, even with my little typo in it. Can everyone see that?
Now it's there.
Posting reform is PDF.
So you say you shared a file, but again, if you will email it as well, so we make sure everybody gets it, that would be great. Okay?
Would you like to send?
Okay, Latrice?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. So yes, I'll email it. I'm sharing
Okay,
it here
great.
as well. So-
Okay, thanks. So, please keep this in mind because we'll be scheduling our meeting and when we get to
I
new
have,
business.
I have that you, a message says, you don't have permission to save this or in this location. I'm not quite sure what that means, okay?
That's why we're gonna email it, so.
And there's 3 others?
And Ruby, it would be good, I think, maybe if this were in the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you add this to the minutes as a attachment to the minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. Then the public will have it too. Great. Anything else for your report, Latrice?
So there's this policing reforms, and there's 3 other documents that's in there.
Or is the policing reforms have all the notes about the different communities on it?
I believe so.
Sorry, I keep muting it. I included so before the meeting started, I usually put the agenda in the chat. Usually, we've done it twice now, but I put the agenda in the chat so that people can click on it. That way, people using a screen reader can download it, and then they can use that to review what we're talking about. So what I have here is the agenda, and then I have the 3 legislative actions that the Des Moines City Council passed and the policing reforms file.
Well, I think those should be available to the public, and I think they should be emailed to the commissioners. So it's a question of how best to do that. And I think these should be attached to the minutes, but those aren't gonna be available to the public for another month probably, so how else can we?
It's there in the chat box, so anybody can download it, and then I'm gonna email it after the meeting.
Okay.
And I guess we can post it on the website too.
Yeah, that would be good.
I'll correct the spelling error in it though before I post it there.
Thanks.
In answer to Ruby's original question,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's see if I understand it correct. When we have a special meeting, which we will schedule today,
Mm-hmm.
in a time, that we will be going over all this material, and we will be compiling our suggestions, our recommendations, I should say, to the city. Using all this material and our own conversations on it. Is that correct?
Yeah. I was just wondering if, are we planning to go that route too?
Go what route, Ruby?
Like you reported, Cedar Rapids are doing these things, Des Moines doing these things. Are we looking at, Davenport Civil Rights Commission, presenting that to the mayor and the police chief?
I think that's what we'll be talking about at the meeting, Ruby. I think
Right.
that's what the meeting is for, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not
Yeah.
making any decisions today, but that's what the meeting
Right,
will be
right.
about. Yep,
Now, the meeting, since it's gonna be the full commission, will be an open meeting, right? The public will be invited. May I suggest that, that we send that when we have the date and time and information available about, when the meeting's gonna be held, that we actually send out a press release so that the public will know that, will know that this meeting is taking place, and they can attend, and they'll have an opportunity to share their comments in the public comments part of the meeting.
This is Lee. I just have a couple of thoughts. First of all, that collection of responses from other cities is very helpful in terms of suggesting various efforts to improve what was a pretty disheartening litany of community complaints that Latrice presented. And I think there's several of those suggestions are ones that probably are going to make sense as we explore this further. I do see that gaining as widespread community support for the changes that would be requested is going to be important. And so I'm happy to see one of our city council members is listening in on this meeting. I think engaging the mayor and the council ultimately in the kinds of changes that are made, obviously want to give Chief Sikorsky the dignity of having a chance to respond to the proposals. But I'm also sensitive to Mike Guster's concerns that we not wait a long time. So I'm hoping that we can have that special meeting in the next, before we would be scheduled to meet ordinarily in August, and continue to look for a rapid response. It looks like some of those cities have gotten further, fairly far down the road in terms of doing the kinds of things that Mike, I think, is looking for when he talks about, when are we going to get a response to what's going on. So thanks to those of you that participated in the first round of this and for putting this together, Latrice. I mean, this may end up being some of the most important work that this commission does, and the commission can't do it on its own, but obviously the commission can be a catalyst, or at least one of the catalysts, to look at some of the more fundamental changes that are really needing to happen.
No, I agree, Lee, and I think, as I said before, I think it's important work, and hopefully we can be a catalyst and one of hopefully many in our community. And I think there are a lot of community groups concerned about this, meeting about this, and it's something that our meeting, I think, is going to not necessarily follow verbatim this, but we can bring any concerns we want to, and it's going to be a process, and it needs to happen soon. So when we schedule our meeting, hopefully it can be soon. And thank you, Latrice, for putting all this together. That was a lot of work.
No problem.
Anything else on your report?
I just had one other question on Latrice's report. Latrice, you mentioned that you'd hired a new staff member, but you didn't mention the role that they're going to play. Can you share that with us?
Our investigator died earlier this year, and so we have a new investigator who's working on the employment, credit, public accommodation, and education cases.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, let me comment a little bit further in terms of Davenport versus the other cities here in Iowa. And I really truly believe that we have to, here in Davenport, being the third largest city in the state of Iowa, must take the lead on these changes that are very much needed and is necessary. Because as a Black person living in this community, I find it very disturbing by that report that we received from Latrice. And because of the severity of it, there needs to be a timeline established as to how we're going to allow the mayor and the police chief, whom I think is doing a great job, but there has to be an expectation of even more transparency in lieu of what's going on and their willingness to work with the community. When you find and when you see that really in the city and the county departments, in particular the city where you have about 6 or 7 departments where you have no blacks at all working in there, and some of the most major decisions being made in those departments. And when you see the county as well, and I can give you some numbers that would back up what I'm talking about, you know, that just, it kind of itself sets a picture of where we are in this city of Davenport in terms of trying to work through and make sure that we have equal access to jobs and just the whole 9 yards when it comes to policing, economics, schools, and the whole 9 yards. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that, but we got to, guys, in my estimation, you know, I understand Henry Harp's cops' willingness to work, and everybody's all lovey-dovey, but sometimes we have to make some people lose a few feathers to make a move and stuff. And so I'm gonna be very much interested in following this one as we move forward. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mike. And I would urge you not to follow it, but I would urge you to be a part of it. I mean, that's what our meeting is going to be. So, you know, bring all those thoughts to the meeting. And, you know, I think we can set forth a timeline and specific demands. And that's what that meeting is going to be about. So everyone be thinking along those lines. And we'll have a full discussion.
And
Thanks.
Mike, yeah,
Yes, sir.
I don't disagree with you. I do agree with you. I think we have to start from a place of trust, but we do have to make sure that these things get done.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, are we ready to move on to business? If so, then Latrice, APA 0133002515.
She's probably muted again.
I am. I'm double muted. I mute the Zoom and then I mute my microphone. So I had remembered to unmute Zoom, but I forgot to unmute my microphone. So this case is a public accommodations case that I recommend that we take to public hearing. It involves disability discrimination, failure to accommodate regarding effective communication. And this case, I actually think we have to take it to public hearing in light of the most recent Supreme Court ruling, because this would not be, I don't think it would be covered under the state law.
And can you tell us a little bit about it? What is the public accommodation?
It's a public accommodation. So a public accommodation is a place where members of the public can go. So, or it could be a government entity, so any sort of public space. And there was a failure to accommodate for effective communication. So it involved someone who was deaf, who requested an accommodation, and they were denied the accommodation. The public accommodation felt that they could, that the person could hear well enough, and they didn't need to accommodate them.
And can you tell us any more about what the public accommodation was? I mean, was it a restaurant or a bus or a meeting, or what was are you able to say?
No, it was a government entity, I could say that.
Okay.
This is Lee. I want to make a comment here that last month when we met, we went through quite a large number of cases that had piled up during the a year and a half of a dispute about who sits as a commissioner. And that was the first time that any of us had had the exposure to that process. And I think separate, this is a discussion that I'd like to have on a future agenda, is how we do process those, because we as commissioners basically had no basis for being able to make a judgment about the worthiness of moving these cases forward or not, and yet apparently we're required to vote to move them to hearing or not. And so we're basically being asked to make a decision without criteria or evidence that would allow us to contribute to it being a sensible decision. If, you know, and I recognize that the disparity between the volume of cases and the staff available and the resources to hear those cases is a big challenge, and that's something else that needs to get addressed in the near future by our city government, in my opinion. But I also think that there could be some fruitful discussions among the commissioners with the staff about how we can best process these matters in a way that is more than just a few sentences of a thumbnail description of the case, which doesn't really give us a lot of basis for decision. So I would ask that we have that as a item of discussion
Lee,
at our next regular meeting.
Lee, I think what you're describing could be a due process violation. So you would be making a determination on a case without having all of the facts. So that is why that's why the process is the way that it is. Because before the commissioners are making a determination on the underlying subject matter, they should hear everything, which is the purpose of the public hearing. So this is the process that it goes through for, I think every commission is, you get a recommendation of whether or not to take it to public hearing. And then if you take it to public hearing, then that's when you get that fuller picture of what exactly is going on. You don't get my synopsis of what all of the facts are and then make a decision of that, because then that is a due process violation.
Well, I have a question then. If that's the case, there's no point in having the commissioners make a decision about which ones go to public hearing.
That's what the law says.
So you're telling me the law, I'd like to see the chapter and verse on that. So the commissioners must vote to hold a public hearing, but they must do so based on virtually no information about the case.
I didn't hear what you said.
The conclusion of what you just said would be that the law requires the commissioners to vote to hold a public hearing on a case or not, but that the commissioners must make that decision having virtually no information about the case.
Well, you have the information about the case, which is what staff is recommending. So staff has reviewed the case. There has been a probable cause decision issued. But then the commission decides whether or not to take it to public hearing, and that's based on a recommendation of staff. So that's the same way.
True, if that's not
You're going in and out, Lee.
okay. If what you say is the case, Latrice, then I don't see any need to have reviewed the cases this last time on a one-by-one item. You're basically saying that the commissioners should vote to hear the cases you recommend and not hear the ones you don't. And if that's where the law puts us, I can accept that, but we could do those as a group rather than one at a time. So I still think it would be useful.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I still think it would be useful to have some further discussion on how we handle these matters at our next ordinary meeting.
And to clarify, the commission does not have to take my recommendation. That is just me giving the recommendation based on what we know about the case.
Well,
But prior to making like a final decision on it, which if you're deliberating the facts of the case, then there is a due process violation there because the parties are not able to be here and be heard and present all of the information that they would like to present if that is going to be the process. So when you are deliberating on the specific facts of a case, you have to give the parties due process.
Well, maybe it would help if we, if aside from receiving your recommendation as to whether or not we should go forward with the case, well, you also share with us, the reasons that you are making that recommendation, why we should and why we shouldn't. Because, obviously, you must have criteria which, lead you to whether or not you recommend that the case go forward. And, for us to make a decision, I think we need to know what that criteria is and how the individual case fits into that criteria.
Well, thank you all for your comments. I think this will be on the agenda for the next meeting, and we can have a more full discussion about it at that time. Does that make sense? Given the lateness of the hour?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Henry.
So, what's our vote on that PA?
So I'm hearing Latrice basically say that this is one that we have to take because it's not one that would be covered by the Iowa Civil Rights Commission. So she's recommending that this be accepted for public hearing. So is that right, Latrice?
Yes.
Yes. So I would.
Also, before the decision was issued, this case should go to public hearing because it's a meritorious case and it has a broad impact on people with disabilities in interacting with this public accommodation.
That is helpful, yes. I would entertain a motion.
I so move that this case be accepted for public hearing.
Thanks, Mike.
I second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? I believe we have a unanimous vote. The next item is director's wage increase. And I discussed this briefly with Latrice before the meeting. It appears that director's wage increase has always been on the July agenda, and what this would be a citywide cost of living increase. And it's my understanding that Latrice did not receive the cost of living increase last July 1st, nor so we would be asked to vote on one for last year as well as the year that started July 1.
So for technically 2 years.
I believe so. Is that right, Latrice?
It would be backdated to July 1st, 2019.
Well, and I mean, depending on what we decide, and I think we could make it applicable or not, or whatever we want to do. That is what is being done for other city employees.
And if I'm just speaking for myself, it's probably hard to decide on that if I'm not aware of the city's budget, item when it comes to commission staff. I mean,
They build in an additional $10,000 for a salary increase for me every year.
What?
$10,000 every year. Is that distributed to the commission staff or just yours?
That's included in our budget for my salary. So that's how they do the budgeting. And I guess that's maybe what other directors get, but when they plan the budget, they plan and add an additional $10,000 in. Everyone else's, they add in the amount of the cost of living increase.
I don't know enough to act on this.
Latrice, do we know how much other directors, or equivalents received in the, city department?
I'm not sure what the other directors are getting. I think that that's definitely something that could be requested from HR, but that would have to come from the commission. And they have asked for that in the past and then given me a commensurate increase. And that was based on the wage disparities that there were. As the only Black director, an attorney, I was making significantly less than all of the white employees. And I believe that was 2016. They gave me a salary increase to increase my salary to match the lowest paid other director. But yeah, that's something that the commission could request. All of the employees throughout the city get the cost of living increase, and it's spelled out in the union contract what it is. And so for last year and this year it's 1%. And because I work for the commission, they have to vote on the 1% increase for mine, but everybody else gets theirs automatically.
Hey guys, here's something else that really bothers me to my core. You know, if first of all, let me make the recommendation that we go and get the other directors' information in terms of how or what was the percentage of their raises.
Yeah.
And so then we would do the same thing accordingly here with Latrice. Secondly, there should be no disparity in terms of what she received with somebody that's comparable in another department within the Davenport city department. The problem that I have here is what I see from information that I've already gathered about the disparity with Black people within senior positions in the Davenport City departments. And so I'm a little sensitive to this, and this is another area that I'm going to watch very closely and stuff, and I think we've got to do the right thing in terms of treating everybody equally and fairly. Thank you.
So am I hearing, Mike, that you would move that we request information from Davenport HR regarding where Latrice falls with respect to other managers and perhaps with respect to other managers throughout the state, and then put this on the agenda for the August meeting?
Exactly, and then we ought to.
Is it throughout the state or just the city of Davenport?
It's the city of Davenport, because that means she's equivalent, her equivalency in other departments would give us an idea of what we should do. So Richard said we don't have enough information. I agree we don't have enough information, but still, if number one, she has to be voted on, whereas other departmental heads get their raise or whatever automatically. That's a bunch of hogwash, and that's very, I say that very calmly, because that just irks me that you got one person that doesn't automatically get something and others do. And that just tells me that there is some disparity there, because all the other white department heads are white. So guys, forgive me for my passion here, but I'm just a little bent over heel here about what's going on in our community. And then we talk about civil rights, and then the city is not doing jack about what they should be doing. So I'm a little passionate here today and stuff, so forgive me if that's the case.
Well, Mike, if I can just explain, I think the reason that we have to vote is that we are an independent commission, and so that Latrice is not an employee of the city in exactly the same way that others are, and so that's why the commission has to vote on this. And it's not to say that the commission won't be fair, but the commission does have to vote. And again, it's because we're an independent commission. And that was true
know that
when,
that's necessarily completely true because the commission's other staff members, theirs doesn't have to be voted on.
and that's because they're supervised by you, I assume.
But it gets approved automatically. So if all of
Yeah.
us are employees of the commission,
So
Well,
I
and
have a question. So I personally just approve rate increase for my staff, but also as a supervisor, you also have that discretion of the amount of that increase. You know, not everybody's gonna get 2%, not everybody's gonna get 5%. I guess it also depends on performance reviews. So I'm also going to ask that if we are going to ask HR about all the other directors' salary increases, then we should also ask for performance reviews that she's had for the past, I don't know. I'm pretty sure we didn't do one last year because I was there. But the year prior to that.
What I find problematic with that is the fact that you've got other city department heads get something automatically. And I hear the fact that we are a separate independent organization within the city here. The problem that I still have with it is that theirs is automatic, and if I read the situation right, she still is a city employee and should be subjected to the same rights and benefits as other people within our city departments. So, and I've been a manager, and I realize that performance that when you do a performance rating, you are looking at an individual to determine how well or how bad they do it during the particular year. Then you determine whether or not they're going to get an award. That award is something that they get above and beyond their regular salary increase. So to me, that's two separate things there.
May I suggest that we break this up into two parts, and that one part is the cost of living increase that Latrice did not get last year, and yet everyone who is a city employee gets that 1%. That we can, I think we can, the 1% standard cost of living increase for last year and for this coming year today.
Absolutely.
And then in terms of additional merit increases and bringing her and where she rates in terms of salary with the other commission heads, directors, we can do that when we have more information.
Okay.
I think she deserves it. If everyone's getting the 1%, she deserves the 1% from last year. She deserves the 1% from this. Let's just get that done, and then address the rest of it. As we get more information.
So Henry, is that a motion?
I move that we
So,
grant Latrice the 1% from 2019 and the 1% from 2020.
I second.
and I take it the second part of that, Henry, is what has already been stated about requesting from HR where
Yes.
Latrice stands with respect to other,
Yes, and then investigate.
Civil and Human Rights Commission directors from around the state, and I'm assuming that a performance review then, as was discussed, would be a part of that. So perhaps we need to talk at the next meeting about how performance reviews would be done for Latrice, if we're going to constitute a personnel committee, or how we want to handle that. So let's make that a part of the discussion when we get this other information from HR as well.
But let's also make that part of the research, because, do the other directors get performance reviews? What is the nature of their performance reviews? So that we can be in line and be fair. Based
Mm.
So
upon,
Ruby, do you have this motion?
Yes, I do. I'm just going to ask, who is going to ask HR for that information?
Well, I certainly can.
Okay.
I'm going to comment that I don't disagree with Mike that we need to pay fairly, and I don't disagree that if it's practice to provide a cost of living increase, we should do it. But I don't think we should take the action until we have the comprehensive information from the Human Resources Department, which presumably we could have by our next ordinary meeting. And at that point, then I would say if we feel it's appropriate, then we provide it retroactive, as Henry's motion suggests, the cost of living increase, and also proceed at that point to determine how we evaluate performance going forward.
Say that again, Lee, for me, please.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen any data. We haven't seen any data. We haven't seen a budget. I prefer to wait until next month when presumably we would have comprehensive information from the Human Resources Department about the pay scale across the board, about the practices regarding cost of living increases. Are they provided uniformly to who? And then once we actually have data in front of us, then approve it. It would be retroactive. So at that point, the staff director would not be personally disadvantaged. And we would have done it based on a point of view of knowledge rather than just a little bit of hearsay.
And Lee, I follow you very clearly. But the thing about it is that everybody in the city gets the same increase. And so, to me, if she didn't get an increase last year and this year, that's a no-brainer to me. I mean, everybody deserves the increase. And so, I think we can take the vote today and go ahead and grant her that increase that everybody else got. And, we can adjust 5 from there based upon performances and everything else, guys. This is, to me, is something that's really overdue. And when we got something that's overdue, we shouldn't kick the bucket down the road and stuff. So I do believe we ought to go ahead and make those increases effective this meeting. And then we'll look at the performance on a separate occasion. Thanks.
Any further discussion? And again, we have Henry's motion, 2 parts, the COLA increase 1% effective July 1, 2019, and another 1% effective July 1, 2020. A salary review separately with me contacting Davenport HR to request, what the performance review situation is with respect to Latrice and other employees. And we'll have a further discussion. The motion is that we have a further discussion about that process at the August meeting. Is that a fair statement, Henry?
Yeah, and sorry, Janelle, can you also ask for her last performance review?
Okay.
A copy of that?
For just the past year, or since the commission has not been really, maybe?
We did not do one last year.
So how far back do you want to go?
What does everybody think?
3 years? I don't know.
why don't we just go back to the last one that she actually received?
In writing.
In writing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby, does that kind of reflect what you want?
Sure. It's just that, we didn't do one last year, so I'm not aware of the process and,
Well, but maybe what was done the year before that, and we can,
Sure.
we can only look at reviews that are actually done. So, do we want to look at one? Or do
yeah, can we look at 2?
2 written reviews, performance reviews, okay.
What is looking at 2, what's that gonna give us?
The merit increases are usually based on performance.
Well, exactly, but I guess I'm asking, what is 2 of them gonna give us when you look at, performance?
That would
The last 2 performances doesn't have any relevance to what the performance was this year. Now, the format that you're looking at, all we need is really 1, and we can move forward and determine what she, deserves based upon what she's done over the last year or something, so
I know. I guess for me, depending on who sits on the commission on those 2 years would be, just getting different perspectives.
But I guess, and I don't want to belay the thing, but what is the relevance for 2 of them versus just 1? If you're looking for a format, 1 should give you that and should give you the information that you need in order to do a current performance rating, appraisal, or whatever you want to call it.
I know, I just thought of.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, from my experience, a lot of times performance reviews kind of go from year to year, and there's goals and action steps and, progress toward those goals that don't, they don't always maybe fit within a neat 12 calendar month year. So, and I think, this is our supervision of Latrice is really the first thing mentioned in our duties as a commission. And so I think a review of the process, what it's been, whether there was a personnel committee or how it's been done, I think that would inform our discussion as we decide how we're going to accomplish supervision of Latrice going forward. Just my 2 cents.
Okay.
So now we're back to this motion that keeps, the motion, I guess, is, Henry, if I may, the COLA increase 1% each year, but then that I will contact HR and get information from HR about performance reviews for Latrice in the recent past, and if they know how that's been done.
But also
fair?
about the comparable.
The comparable, yes,
Yeah,
data from around the
compensation
state.
for
Yes.
other commission directors
Yes,
to see whether or not she is being shortchanged.
In the past, what happens is the chair would have access to an online system to submit a performance review. The city divested from that online system last year, and they would perform the performance evaluation that way. They would meet with staff and discuss things with them, and then input that information into the system. As Mike said, that has no bearing on the cost of living increase. A merit
And we
increase is
understand that,
different
Latrice,
than a cost of living increase. So that is the process in the past. And our HR records may not necessarily be compiled within the city's HR department because we are not within their jurisdiction. We are an independent entity. So that's something to factor in as well.
so Latrice, do you have a personnel file?
I maintain personnel files in our office, but again, there was an online system that the city divested itself from, and so we can't access that. So that would have been where the performance evaluations were.
Well, I guess I'll have to talk to HR and see what they have to say. So, any further discussion on the motion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Who is that? Sorry.
Lee Gaston.
So we have 5 in favor, Lee opposed, and Ruby abstains. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I have.
The motion is carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, and I know it's getting late, we'll try to move quickly here. Meeting format, I think, Latrice, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this has to do with the, well, currently the fact that we're having meetings via Zoom or a video format. And the question becomes whether the commission will record the meetings and post those recorded meetings on our website. And it's my understanding that sometime in the past, I think it was in, I think it was in 2018 or 2017, the commission voted to not record its meetings. And so the question before us is whether we want to record the meetings and make them available to the public via the website.
I think including 2019, our meetings were still getting recorded and posted on the website. Because I would used to see it in there, and I'm able to watch it again. And then all of a sudden it stopped. So I wasn't sure how and when it stopped. Patrice, do you know why?
I don't record the meetings, so I'm not
No.
sure why. That would be from the city's communication department.
Okay, so it's them.
As far as I know, the meetings or efforts that we had to have meetings over the last 18 months were almost all recorded until the COVID outbreak. And as a matter of personal preference, I think it's better for trust in the community if they are, to provide some transparency. I know there were concerns that some members of the public or people with interest in matters before the commission might be intimidated by the recording or have specific fears about appearing in a public venue. And I think there's some legitimate concern about that, but I think the need for transparency outweighs that, in my personal opinion. So I would vote to continue to have the meetings recorded and made available on the city's website.
So who would be responsible in recording it? If we choose to record it? Again, since we don't have the city's communication department. Or they can do that as well too, I guess.
Yeah, they can. We can request it of the city, and the city, I'm guessing, will be agreeable to that. In the meantime, while we're meeting like this, you can record it on Zoom, and I would hope that the Zoom recordings would be made available via web link.
Yeah, I'm recording. I'm
Latrice.
not sure where to go. Where am my phone going?
This is Latrice. I just noticed it's 1:51. We lose our captioner at 2. So did we, I think, Janelle, when we discussed this, and Rabbi Karp, you said that you wanted to have, just put that out there and then have a vote on this next month?
Well, we're right under the gun in terms of getting anything done. I guess, well, so this meeting is being recorded, is that right, Latrice? Looks like it is.
Yeah, I am
Okay.
recording it. Is anybody else recording it? In case I lose it?
Yes, it's being recorded.
So I'm hearing that we'll need to put this forward to the next meeting. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So table the meeting format?
Yes,
Yeah.
That's started.
thanks. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think the most important thing that we have left is to schedule our special meeting on the culture of policing, what does anybody have for, proposals for when that meeting could be held? Do you want a noon meeting again? Do we want a 10 o'clock in the morning and try to get done by noon, or all afternoon, or what? I mean, it's probably not gonna be an hour meeting. It's probably gonna be of some duration.
So it'll be 2 hours.
Any proposals for dates?
Janelle, let me ask, now, is this the meeting that's gonna be public with the public involvement?
Yes. I mean, all our meetings are open, and so
Right.
they'll be,
Right.
yeah. But this would be a special meeting, so we can have it any time. And it's the one that Henry suggests that once we arrive at a time, that we both post that as we are required to do, but also do a press release, to announce the meeting.
Shouldn't we do it in the evening? I mean, 12 o'clock seems to be a time when most people are at work, those that are working, at least, just a suggestion, so,
Yeah, no, that's why we're talking about it.
It depends on what day we agreed on.
So, 6 o'clock some evening, is that too early? 6:30?
yeah, I think that's about right.
Hang on, what day?
Why don't we do it, let me throw out 2 weeks from today, with halfway between this meeting and the next, commission meeting.
So the 21st?
That would be the 28th.
So
Oh, right, 28th.
I am not usually available after 5. I have commitments at night. Remember the last time we scheduled a night meeting, I wasn't there.
Right.
Well, the thing about this, though, if we're gonna get, and I recognize we're not gonna get everybody, but if it's for the public interest, I think we're better served if we do it at that particular time. I mean, you guys, if we all have to be here, I mean, that's a shortcoming. I mean, that's a thing that we have to deal with. But if we want to get the general public's information or issues that they have with it, it is better served that, I believe, done at 6:30, and then you give those individuals that work that can't take off at 12 o'clock to have input into this meeting, into this process.
We'll just have to elect a secretary pro tem, Ruby, so that somebody else can take the minutes.
So would anybody be in opposition for a Saturday?
Oh, that's good too. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, instead of us all, trying to, we're all good people, but.
Sounds good too.
In this pandemic, every day is the same, I think, so.
Yeah.
I don't know about yours. but mine isn't.
I get up every day wondering what the day is.
Right.
Mhm.
But
So,
So yeah, just
I
throw out there.
I have a problem with every other Saturday, because I have a son with autism who lives in a group home in Iowa City. He comes home every other weekend, and we go to him up on Saturday morning. So Saturday the 25th is not going to work. The 18th
Okay.
or the 1st would work better for me.
so July 18th or August 1st?
July 18th or August 1st, yes.
And what time of day are we talking? 10 o'clock in the morning? 9 o'clock? 2 o'clock? 1 o'clock?
I think we should get it out of the way in the morning, and although Saturday every day sounds about like the same day, but I still like to have my Saturdays to relax and do some other things.
So,
If
how about 10 o'clock?
so
10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
if we agree to do it on the 18th, today is already the 14th, would we have time to get out a press release?
That's why I would suggest August 1st.
I would too.
Okay,
I am scheduled to be in Michigan on the 1st. I'm guessing I may be able to participate via Zoom nonetheless. It may be somewhat affected by the time of day, but I would not avoid that date simply because of my physical absence from the Quad Cities.
Lee, you might want to check to see whether or not Michigan is one of the states that is requiring a 2-week quarantine for people coming to their state from Iowa.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
New York is one.
New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, you know.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
good point.
so
Thank you.
the proposal is 158. The proposal is, that we have our special meeting on the culture of policing in Davenport at 10:00 a.m. on August 1st. It will be a Zoom meeting. Hopefully, those who can participate will participate. It will be, again, a Zoom meeting. And, Latrice, can you do a press release?
Yep.
Thanks. So that meeting is scheduled. Now, Latrice, is it your feeling that we have to end the meeting now?
I've messaged them to see if they're able to stay on after 2, but I haven't gotten a response.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead then and talk about whether we want to, at this time, schedule a broader community meeting, or do we want to have the special meeting and then talk about where we want to take it from there? I mean, I'm assuming that after the special meeting, we will come up with demands or suggestions or really some specific things that we want to see. And as Mike has been suggesting, we need to take those requests and demands to the city council, I suppose, as well as the police. So how do we want to proceed with respect to that larger group?
Are we not planning the August 1st meeting as a public?
The public has to
Well,
be. It's an open meeting.
it'll be a special meeting of the commission, but I think that we will be asking for, input, rather than having, public comment at the end. We'll be asking for more input, maybe during the course of the meeting. I don't know, that'll bear discussion too, I guess, but, it'll be a public meeting.
Maybe at the beginning of the meeting, after an introduction.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
have its input, and then we can, all that we have in front of us.
Exactly.
So, Jenna, I'm not quite sure what your question was. Can you reframe your question?
Well, as the agenda says, and as Lee raised last time, at some point, and certainly, request for more funding is also something that we'll be talking about. And so, at some point, we may want to address we may want to ask for time at a city council meeting to address the council as a commission and to put forth our concerns and our requests. And it could be the culture of policing, it could be increased funding, it could be all sorts of things.
Well, wouldn't that come out of our special meeting as?
Well, and Lee, are you okay with that if we kind of hold that in abeyance for now and see where the special meeting takes us?
I am, yes.
Okay, then I guess that's what we'll do. We'll concentrate on our special meeting on August 1st and hold in our minds the idea that we might at some point ask to meet with the city council.
I think, well, let me just say this. I think as a result of the information that we have today and the information that we're gonna receive from this here public meeting, I truly believe we have enough enough information to request a meeting with the city council. And, you know, we've already given the police chief and the mayor a heads up with information. So, so as not to allow too much dust to grow up under our feet, I think we ought to go ahead and just prepare or say that we're going to meet with the city, ask the city council to meet with them to present this information to them at their at that forum. Our findings.
So are you suggesting that we essentially get on the city council meeting agenda prior, I mean, scheduled, I have no idea how long it takes to get on an agenda, maybe others do. But you're suggesting that we really request to be on a city council agenda before we really have our demands in place, but that we know we'll have them because we essentially already do. Is that the idea?
That's correct. I think we got the gist of everything that we're gonna get. We may have more, and so, you know, we're gonna have to come back at another meeting to vote whether or not what we're gonna do. And I just believe that's a step that we don't necessarily need to come back and do and stuff. We can always say, hey, we don't need to do it, but I don't think that's going to ever be the case because of the level or the number of complaints or issues that you already have from what you gave the mayor and the police chief. And they're not going to be broadsided by information that they're going to get because they already know what's happening.
And I'm assuming though that we would ask to be on an agenda of a city council meeting after August 1st.
Yes.
Obviously, yeah. Well, I will contact Ms. Thorndike and see what we can put together. Now, do we all want to be at that meeting? I mean, I guess my understanding is the city council has been meeting some people in person, some people virtually. How do we want to appear?
I guess it depends on the individual.
And, you know, I think they've been allowing a certain number of people to be physically present in the room, and obviously that can't be too many. So I'm hoping that we will come out of the August 1st meeting with a written list of requests, demands, concerns, and that could be provided to them, and that the actual, you know, I mean, that would be provided, and so the discussion could be just to go over those, to summarize those rather than you know, to just lay it all out verbally at the meeting. So it could be just a few of us that could be at the meeting, but I do think it would be good to have as many of the commission present, either virtually or in person, as possible. So
I would be present virtually.
And I would be present virtually.
yeah. Well, certainly.
I'm going to be in person on this one.
Okay.
Because they are pretty much practicing safe distancing, and they got their safety measures in place down at the council meeting anyway.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to go in, you can wait on the outside to go in and be heard or whatever and stuff. So I'm going to do it in person.
Okay, great, thanks. And people don't have to decide now, but we'll certainly talk about that more at our special meeting. But thanks for that. But I'll ask to get on the soonest agenda after the 1st that we can, I guess, get it together. Anything further on that? request for increased funding for commission. I think, we discussed this last time. Mike certainly asked that it be on the agenda this time, and I think we all see the need for it. And, you know, perhaps this could be something added to our agenda next time, unless we feel we have enough information to mention it to the council now. And Latrice, maybe you can let us know more about what the budget process is and when do we have any input in the budget? Like what month does that get put together?
Sorry, I'm emailing the captioning
I'm
service.
sorry.
They're able to stay on until 2:30, so, if we, does that seem to work?
I think we'll try to do it, yes, thank you.
Okay. So the first thing with budget, they're gonna have the business plan is gonna be submitted, later this month. We don't, get much input into the budget. We're told what we're getting and that's it.
Yeah.
I looked through what other cities are getting, and so I have that comparison for you to factor into the consideration there. And I've looked at what the numbers are of the cases that other commissions have, and generally we have at least twice as many cases as other commissions receive, but in some cases we have 5 times as many cases as other commissions get.
So do people, go ahead, Henry.
No, you go, Janelle.
I was just gonna say, do people want to make this something that we could at least, if we're gonna already be before the city council, would this be something that we could at least put in our list of concerns and demands, that increased funding needs to be beyond the scope of this, whatever the boilerplate, you know, here's the budget, take it or leave it kind of analysis, and that this really is a time for this city to make a fundamental shift in the way that it not only polices but also allocates resources for, you know, the good of the community and the social programs that Latrice mentioned in her list of what other cities are doing. How do we want to handle this?
I think in line of, you know, what's going on across the country, I think it's just, you know, maybe there'll be more, what do you call this? They'll be more open to doing that.
Yeah, I agree with Ruby that if there's ever been an environment where that message of resource allocation could be raised, this is it. Obviously, my guess is the government of the city of Davenport will be like lots of others. They're struggling with the revenue flows as business has been down. But I think we have to stand up and say, when we look at the caseloads, when we look at the issues that are in front of this community, the city really has been shortchanging this function in particular. And more broadly, I would hope that the city government is already debating, meaning the mayor and the council, or is considering how do they deal with what is not just a Davenport crisis, but really a national crisis. It's been a crisis for a long, long time, but it's really been coming to a head in the minds of people who've had the ability to be fairly oblivious to it in these last couple of months, both because of what's happened with the policing issues, but also the pressure and stress that the COVID pandemic has put on. So yes, let's raise our hand and see. We may not get anything, but if we don't ask, we certainly won't.
I'll just add this real quickly. any organization, you can, and I said this before, you can find out where their priority is with respect to where they are spending their money. And so, Latrice has already said that she has no input to her budget or to the budget process. That's another piece that has to change as we move forward, because only the director or the departmental head knows exactly what they need to operate within their particular organization or their department. And if you don't get an opportunity to make that pitch, then you get pennies, you get hand-me-down every time the budget process is proposed and put into place and stuff. So, but I think we need to do that as well.
Well, so should we add this to our discussion on August 1st and put something together? I mean, I think the Alder people need to hear us as commissioners put it to them that, you know, we all really went through our first meeting, except Ruby and Lee, last month, and I think we were all shocked to hear how scant the resources are that the city puts toward the Civil Rights Commission. And I think that the Alder people need to hear us as commissioners say, this is wrong, this needs to change, and really put it to them. So, so should we discuss this at the special meeting as well? Just briefly to say that.
Yeah. Latrice, do you have any information? Earlier you mentioned something about the city of Davenport hears more cases than the other surrounding cities.
Maybe, Latrice, you can put together something in writing that shows us and that we can pass along to the city council that really shows what other cities' commissions are getting, what the number of their staff are, what the number of their cases are, really so that we can, you know, demonstrate that this just isn't tenable.
Also,
Oh, sorry.
the cost of hearing a case. Last month, I believe the number came out as $10,000 it cost us out of our budget to hear a case. You know, when I mention that, people, they're really kind of shocked that it costs that much. I think the city council needs to know why it is so expensive to have those hearings, and also why it's so important to have those hearings. So, you know.
Right.
I could pull an old, one of the old billings for a public hearing that we've had in the past and show that. Ruby, what was your question?
You mentioned something about, you know, the city of Davenport hears more cases than the other civil rights commission, you know, around the area. So maybe we can use that to compare, you know, and kind of justify our need for additional funding.
Yeah. So Cedar Rapids last year had 39 cases, whereas we had 166. In 2018, they had 34, whereas we had 156, and their budget is roughly double ours. Des Moines had 86 in 2019. They had 74 in 2018. Sioux City had 33 in 2019. I couldn't find, I think Dubuque doesn't do investigations anymore. I think they had a shift that they are no longer investigating cases, and it somehow goes through their legal department, and they decide whether or not to forward the case to the Iowa Civil Rights Commission for filing. I'm waiting to hear back from Waterloo about what their cases are, and I couldn't find Iowa City's online either.
If we can just have something, you know, documented.
It's available online.
Oh, and show that comparison.
So I'm taking that we will discuss this a little bit at our August 1st meeting because we don't have time. We've got 14 minutes and we're going to try and get through the rest of our agenda. So we will, Latrice, if you'll put something together in writing for us to have at that meeting, that will be helpful. And I guess that will be one of the stated things for the meeting. The commission letter, Latrice, I think you and I agreed on what the commission letter says. Do you have it available to put up? Was it in the packet or? this is a letter to the mayor saying we want to be in on the discussion next time you, undertake to amend the civil rights ordinance. Thanks.
There is a letter already, you said,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there it is, yeah. So essentially, what this letter is asking is that that the mayor and city council give us really, formal notice the next time they undertake to do this. And I think the idea was that this would be signed by all of us. And I don't know how we make that happen virtually.
Should we pass it as a motion? And, move and second that this letter be sent on behalf of the commissioners, and have it done that way.
Yeah.
And just, you could record the votes of those who support it. I think we've lost Rich, from the meeting, but everybody else is still on, I think.
So, go ahead.
I'd like to just recommend one addition to the letter. In the beginning of the second paragraph, I'd like us to say that while we agree with the nature, with the amendment, the commission would like, I want it to be clear that we're not questioning the amendment about conversion therapy. That we support that amendment, but that, we want, that in the future, we want this to be the process.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be interpreted that we are supporting conversion therapy.
No.
Get us in a lot of trouble with the LGBTQ plus community.
So Lee, is your motion then that we approve this letter, that it be sent to the mayor and city council? I guess,
You could just say, approved by a vote of 6-0, if that's what it is, at the commission meeting of such and such a date.
mhm.
If that works, that gets the message.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's
gonna
the main
guess
thing.
that the mayor won't have a problem with that, and I think it's important, though, that he and the council be reminded that if they're changing legislation related to commission,
Yeah,
it might
it would
be
be
nice
nice.
to run it by the commissioners.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second to that.
What we can do is print it out on letterhead and then scan it and send it around to everyone, and they can electronically sign it, or they can print it and sign it and scan it back in.
That would work.
I think that's, I don't know, Lee, what do you think about that? Seems kind of unwieldy to me, but.
You're
If we
even
get it
on-
out quick, I don't know, is everybody capable of doing the scan it, in their personal circumstances? I am, but I know some people that may be more difficult.
I think, I have the Adobe version where you can ask for signatures for everybody. If this can be sent to me and then everybody's email, then I can send it to you one by one so everybody can sign it.
Why don't we try that?
Okay.
There's not a huge time urgency on this, so why don't we do that then? So I'll restate the motion that we approve this letter and have it asked that it be transmitted as Ruby's described using Adobe
Okay,
with the signatures of every commissioner that will sign it.
okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor? Aye, raise your
Aye.
hand. Those opposed? So I guess, Ruby, that's 6.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're down to 8 minutes.
Could I suggest that we move to the public comment? People have been, if there are people here who want to make comments, they've been sitting through this whole meeting. And, we ought to let them have their say. And we can put, right out of time, then we can put the rest of our, agenda on next month.
So is that your motion?
That's my motion. Anybody second my motion?
I second that.
The motion is the public comment be moved up to now. There's been a
Yeah.
second by Mike. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? With that, any members of the public who would like to address this are welcome to do so. And bear in mind that I think we may have but 7 minutes, and I apologize for that. So ready, set, go.
Nobody?
I think everyone is muted. I'm going through and unmuting everyone now.
No, thank you.
You are unmuted.
Anyone choose to make comments to the commission? Any member of the public?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burchard. Anybody else?
Wow, that's a first.
Well, if not, I guess I would,
This is Latrice. We got a request in the office from, someone who was in attendance earlier that public comment be moved up before the rest of the discussion, so that people didn't have to wait for the entire meeting. And they also wanted to know if they can send over information to commissioners.
Or,
I don't know. They didn't say what. They just said, can they send over information to commissioners?
well, I would say this is something that probably can be put on the agenda for next time. I mean, I think the idea always has been that people need to hear the meeting so that they can comment on the meeting. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. And as to whether people can, contact the commission, I'm sure there through time have been communications to the commission, and I think we would certainly review whatever we receive, albeit in writing, I would think. So, but let's put that on the agenda for next time.
moving public comments to the beginning of the meeting? Or before the meeting itself?
Well, we'll talk about it next time.
Okay.
Yeah. Latrice, ICRC contract. Latrice?
Alrighty, my mouse was on the other screen. That's our new contract, so we signed the one from last year. So now it's time to sign the next year's contract as well.
Okay, so you'll provide that to me?
Yes.
Nothing new in it that we should talk about?
Not that I noticed.
Okay, well, if you'll review it and then send it to me. The HUD PAR,
That's our performance assessment report from HUD. We have 4 minutes, so there has to be a vote on the ICRC contract for you to sign it.
oh, okay. I entertain a motion that I sign the HUD the ICRC contract.
This Mike, I so move.
Thank you, Mike. Second, please. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Henry. Any discussion?
Are we able to share that to the commissioners? I don't know what's in it.
Latrice?
Wow, I'm terrible at this. Yeah, I can send it out to everybody.
Thank you. Just email.
So when does it, since I just signed the last one, I guess this one, do we have another month, Latrice, before I sign it?
They can vote on it, and then, I can send it out to everybody when we send it out to, like, have Beth send it out to everybody when she sends it out to you. But if you wanna wait to vote on it, well, I guess there's already been a motion and a second.
Well-
But, I mean, I guess the option would be to not, enter into a work sharing agreement with ICRC, and that would create an additional, procedural conundrum for us where we would have to take all cases to public hearing.
ICRC is what?
Iowa Civil Rights Commission.
Okay.
So we work with them, they're taking part of our cases,
Mhm.
and thus reduce our workload, so.
We
But
cross
it-
file with them, and so they don't take some of our cases, but it gives people the protections that are available under the Iowa Civil Rights Act. So that is where we derive some of our authority is from the Iowa Civil Rights Act. And so with a work sharing agreement, their case gets filed with the Iowa Civil Rights Commission as well as with our office.
Right. I have no disagreement. I just wanted to know what's in it.
Well, so Latrice, I understand that you can email it to everyone, and, I mean, do we have a problem with voting on it now before that review, or,
Hey, guys, we gotta continue to vote and stuff, finish the vote, and we can review it, but it's gonna be a document that's gonna have to take place regardless of what we do, so.
yeah, no, I think that's right.
Hey, I think
So-
we're playing.
So Ruby, is it okay if we go ahead with the vote?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I have, Guster and Carp second.
yes, so, any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye or hand. So, old business quickly, Latrice, I take it that this is the Seeberger case? The next item on the agenda?
Yes,
Yeah,
so
so-
we didn't do the HUD part, but, do we want to table
Oh, I'm
that?
sorry, yeah, I think we
Um,
should table that, yeah, I mean,
And then we have like a minute. So the Seaberger case, Beth is, I think finally finished scanning everything in and getting everything, updated onto USBs. We have to wait to get to USBs and then, so it's a large file. So, she will be contacting everyone this week with, determining how you want to receive a copy of that.
great, thanks.
So, I guess, is it impossible to just put it in an email instead of, what do you call that? Drive thing?
Yes, it's impossible.
Yeah,
It
it's too
is?
big.
It's
too big.
2:32, so they're capturing it.
So you'll be hearing, you know, how you want to receive this, and a USB may be the best way. I'm gonna skip forward. Well, I'll just say email format. I contacted the city, legal department. They basically were saying, you know, the controversy was, do you want to have a city email, use your own email, use your personal? Their line is, if there would be a request for your emails, it would be easier to have it on the city server, because their IT people could do the scan and come up with your commission emails very easily. You, and the alternative, could set up your own Gmail account for those emails, and I think that's what people are doing if they want to do that. So it's not that you're required to have a city email account, and so I don't think there's much more to say about that. Commissioner training, it's my understanding, Latrice, that you have arranged with someone from the University of Iowa to provide us with training that we certainly need, and so.
We need
we'll
to get a vote to end the meeting. The person has to, it's 2:31.
Okay, so we'll be hearing more about training, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Thanks, Mike. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Ruby. No discussion.
Everyone.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a
See
great
you
day,
on the-
guys.
See you on the 1st.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
I have to figure out where this